My Historical California by Kat Avila. This video was made from selected pages and photos from way back when I had a website. Nothing much has been updated, so these historical sites, how they look, and access to them may have changed. Check the internet for the most current information. The house was first named after a businessman who purchased prefabricated buildings from Maine and erected them in San Diego, which is why the house is viewed as a well-maintained example of New England architecture. While Davis never lived in the house, another major San Diegan family, the Hortons, did for a brief time. The ghost of a Victorian woman has been seen at the top of the stairs on the second floor. The Day of the Dead is observed from the evening of October 31st through November 2nd in memory of the deceased. Typical activities include making and decorating family altars, cleaning and picnicking at family grave sites, and playing traditional Day of the Dead games. Orange and yellow marigold flowers, sugar skulls and toy coffins, bread of the dead, and handcrafted skulls and skeletons are among the usual items sold for this festival. At Fairhaven Mausoleum, a crying child could be heard in the mausoleum's basement when there were children's crypts there. So the story goes. The lady in black left a single red rose at actor Rudolph Valentino's crypt on the anniversary of his early death. No one knew who she was. Copycat ladies confused the matter more, but most people believe the original lady in black was Dietra Flame, remembering Valentino's kindness and encouragement to her when she was a seriously ill teenager in a hospital. That woman died in 1984, but the tradition continues with symbolic mourners. Victorian-era ghosts are said to haunt the hotel. The best known is Roger Whittaker. The usual story is that he was a gambler who was caught cheating at poker and was shot and killed in room 309. Roger is said to be a mischievous but not mean-spirited ghost. In October 2019, the skeleton of a 46-year-old Japanese-American internee was found on Mount Williamson. He had succumbed to the cold during a snowstorm curse excursion by camp members. His body wasn't found until a month later in September 1945, and he remained there and was buried under rocks. The ghost of Manzanar, as he was known to internees, and the location of his gravesite were only rediscovered almost 75 years later. In the summer of 1884, on the Star of India, a teenage stowaway fell from one of the masts and died 3 days later without regaining consciousness. He liked to play tag with his fellow mates, and today still plays it with tourists. On the 1898 steam ferryboat Berkeley, there have been sightings of a man from the early 1900s wearing a fedora. The idea of the man is not certain, though some say it's someone who died on the ship from a nitroglycerin explosion. On the morning of December 8, 1812, the San Juan Capistrano earthquake destroyed the mission's great stone church, which was already weakened by the 1800 San Diego earthquake. 42 indigenous people died. The candle-bearing ghost of a young woman haunts the ruins. The house was formerly called the Garcia Pryor Residence. It was built around 1875. The ghost of former tenant Albert Pryor haunts the porch. In 1942, the Queen Mary struck the HMS Curacao, resulting in 338 deaths. Years later, the chief engineer could hear a ghostly rush of water and men's voices from the bow. In the pool area, a female bather who drowned in the 1960s and a woman wearing a white gown have been seen. An 18-year-old crew member haunts the engine room. He was crushed to death in 1966 by a door in a shaft tunnel. The original Nieto family adobe was built in the early 1800s. The house and California State University, Long Beach, overlay the 2,000-year-old Tongva sacred site of Puvungna, which includes native burial grounds. Cattle and sheep ranching was done on what was originally part of an 18th century land grant to Spanish soldier Manuel Nieto. Some years later, his daughter took ownership of the parcel Rancho Los Cerritos. The disgruntled ghost of a foreman, plus lesser-known others, haunts the two-floor adobe house built in 1844 by cattle rancher John Temple. A caretaker once had a ghostly visitor talk to them and give them some frank advice. Other people have heard a baby crying in the house. The archway between the parlor room and study room marks the place where James Yankee Jim Robinson was hanged for his crimes in August 1852. The Whaley house was built over that location. From overhead in the bedroom area, the footsteps of a man walking in heavy boots could be heard. Thomas Whaley himself thought it was the ghost of Yankee Jim. In the courtroom, the ghost of a dark-skinned woman who wears hoop earrings and a floor-length cotton print dress has been spotted. A block south of Whaley House is a small cemetery at the fork of Linwood Street and San Diego Avenue. Round markers labeled grave site on the sidewalks indicate graves that are paved over under the streets and not within the cemetery itself. The grave sites were discovered in the 1990s by radar. The legend of the Pink Lady was made up for a dare. The Pink Lady was a young woman in a pink gown who died in a carriage accident on her way home from a dance. She appears every 2 years, preferably even-numbered years, on the night of June 15. The name of a woman buried in the cemetery was arbitrarily linked to the Pink Lady. Some folk wisdom. After a funeral or a visit to the cemetery, do not return home directly. Make a stop somewhere, preferably a busy place like Walmart or a shopping mall with lots of people. Then go home. And the second thing you should do is, before you step through the door to your house, throw salt over yourself. This cleanses and protects you.